And to break it all down, let's bring in Washington Post reporter Callum Borchers, who joins us now from D.C. All right, Callum, so clearly Georgia is on the president's mind today. Let's talk about what's at stake for his administration when it comes to this special election.
Appreciate the musical reference there, by the way. That was very clever. It's high stakes for both, right? I mean, if you're the Republicans, it would be a huge embarrassment to lose this seat. This is Newt Gingrich's old seat. It's Georgia, for heaven's sake. I mean, the Republicans should have this thing in the bag, but it is surprisingly close. If you're the Democrats, I suppose you could walk away with another moral victory just by keeping it close, but at some point you have to wonder, when are the Democrats going to win? I mean, remember, Ossoff came close to winning this seat outright during that open primary where there were many Republicans in the field. Didn't quite do it. We're just a few weeks removed from a special election in Montana where Democrats were surprisingly competitive, and yet the Republican Greg Gianforte still won, even though he body slammed a reporter the night before the election. And so for Democrats, you know, at some point you have to have an actual win and not just a moral victory.
Why are people saying, though, that this election is a referendum on Trump?
Well, he barely won the district in the November election, remember. I think it was by just a single percentage point. And so I think that it's easy to look at this race and see, you know, 6-7 months later, well, what's the difference, right? Is Trump improving his ground in that state with a Republican who can win it more comfortably than Trump won it in the fall? Or if it goes the other direction, the Democrat wins it, then does that mean that his hold in places like Georgia is slipping and that perhaps that's a bad omen for his presidency? Of course, that's a slight oversimplification. These are candidates on their own, and Karen Handel is sort of tying herself to Trump, but not fully embracing him. And so it's probably a little bit too facile to just say this is a referendum on Trump.
All right, let's keep with this particular election here. In an interview with Breitbart, Karen Handel said health care, quote, hasn't been that much of an issue on the ground. She went on to say the biggest issue is that Jon Ossoff is from outside the district. What do you make of that characterization of the race? Well, to say that health care hasn't been a big issue seems like a little bit of a stretch. I mean, it's a big issue all over the country, of course. You know, what's striking, however, though, is that there isn't a lot to debate on the substance, because right now we don't really know what's in the Senate's version of the health care bill. We didn't get a whole lot to look at the House version before it passed, you know, and now you know, Senate Republicans are crafting the bill behind closed doors. And so my guess would be that if she feels like she's not hearing a lot about it on the ground as she's campaigning, it's perhaps because people just feel like they don't have a lot to talk about because they don't even know what's in the darn thing. No kidding. And let's talk about that now. We know Senate Republicans are trying to push ahead and get a vote on a health care bill before the July 4th recess. Meanwhile, Democrats, as you're saying, criticizing them for really doing all of this behind closed doors. And certainly there are some Republicans there who are not too crazy about the fact that this is all going down without their input as well. How do you see this fight unfolding from here? Right. I mean, we heard from Lisa Murkowski, the senator from Alaska, yesterday, a Republican. She was very critical of the way some of her colleagues are crafting the bill behind closed doors and saying, look, I mean, how am I supposed to be expected to get behind this thing when I don't really know what's in it? Now, presumably, senators will have a chance to review it before they would have to actually vote for it. But they wouldn't have a whole lot of time to weigh it, wouldn't have a chance to really score it or get the feel for what their constituents feel about it. The whole process is really, really compressed. And so I think what it kind of comes down to is, for a lot of Republicans, how badly do you really hate Obamacare? I mean, if you really believe that literally anything is better, well, then I suppose you'll be willing to cast your vote for it. But if you feel like, you know, Obamacare isn't the end of the world and I'm not going to vote for something that I'm not fully familiar with, you know, then you're probably going to walk away. All right, let's switch gears to talk about Sean Spicer here. We know he's held an off-camera, no audio press briefing yesterday, reportedly searching for his own replacement as press secretary. What's going on here? What do you make of all this? It looks to me as if the White House is trying to figure out kind of a compromise solution that allows Spicer to save face while still getting somebody else out in front to speak for the president to reporters, right? So it looks like Spicer wouldn't really be canned altogether. He would just be transitioned into some kind of behind-the-scenes role, continue to serve as a communications advisor to the president, but that they would have a new front man or front woman. We've heard some candidates, could be Laura Ingraham, the conservative radio host,
Post, although she sounded kind of cool to the idea on Fox and Friends this morning. Kimberly Guilfoyle is another Fox News personality who has previously expressed interest in the position, but more recently has said maybe not so. Some of it might come down to just trying to play it cool, right? You don't want to act like you're all in for this job and then, you know, go through the embarrassment of being crushed if you don't get it. I think that really what we're looking for, though, is whether whoever the next press secretary might be sort of changes the trajectory of the briefing. As I wrote yesterday, they've been getting shorter and rarer. I mean, we're on pace for only about 300 minutes worth of briefing time with reporters in June. And for perspective, we had 1,000 minutes of briefing time for reporters back in March. So you're talking about Q&A time just going off the cliff.
And what do you think that says?
Well, it's hard to say. It's hard to say whether it is purely strategy by the White House saying we're better off just not talking a lot. And keep in mind that they have said we're not going to answer any more Russia investigation questions. We're going to refer all of those questions to the outside counsel. So is that sort of a broader White House strategy, or is it Spicer specific, right? If the White House is saying, well, we'd like to talk more, but we just feel like the person that we have in the role right now isn't serving us very well, then it could be temporary. I think a lot of us in the press are kind of hoping it's the latter. We're hoping it's Spicer specific, that they're saying, let's transition him out of this role, get somebody out there who's more comfortable in the position, and then we'll see that, you know, graph tick back up and we'll have more Q&A time. Because right now, you know, the frustration is really spilling over. I was struck yesterday by watching Jim Acosta on CNN, who's, you know, typically pretty reserved, you know, talking about how the briefings have basically become pointless at this point, and getting pretty fired up about it.
Absolutely. All right, Callum Borchers of the Washington Post for us. Thank you so much.
Glad to be with you.